I'm Scott Gurian. I'm a longtime public radio and print reporter, and I've created this podcast called Far From Home to document the unexpected adventures and chance encounters I have with interesting people around the world. To start off, I'm telling the story of a massive road trip my brother and I took with our friends, raising money for charity. We drove nearly 11,000 miles.
11,000?
That's right, a quarter of the way around the Earth, from London to Mongolia, through 18 countries, 8 time zones, 5 mountain ranges, and a few deserts, in a ridiculously tiny car.
It's like the Beverly Hillbillies.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's the adventure, isn't it? It's just the thing of pushing yourself to the absolute limit, because I think it's going to take us out of our comfort zone, but in a really good way.
If you're just joining me, I suggest you first go back and listen to all the previous episodes in order to get up to speed and for all of this to make a bit more sense. From language barriers to car trouble, getting horribly lost to paying bribes to shady traffic cops, it's been quite an amazing experience, and over the coming episodes, I'll be bringing all of you along with me for the ride. As my brother and I discussed last time, planning a road trip of more than 11,000 miles through 19 countries requires jumping through all sorts of logistical hoops. Between securing our visas, filling out paperwork, and ordering supplies, juggling everything felt at times almost like a full-time job. So to start off this show, I thought I'd take you a bit into my world from the final months and weeks leading up to our departure.
Thank you for calling the Consulate General of the Republic of Uzbekistan in New York City.
A lot of my time was spent calling around to embassies and consulates, sorting out the complicated rules we'd need to follow to secure passage through all of the countries in our itinerary. As Americans, we're pretty lucky that there's a long list of places we could travel to by simply showing our passports, but there were still half a dozen on our route that did require advance permission. We easily got our Turkish visas in less than 10 minutes by filling out a form on the consulate's website. Iran was much more difficult, requiring us to hire a tour guide to take us through. Then there were weird rules we had to research, like Uzbekistan saying we could only bring an 8-pack of vitamins, 5 sets of contact lenses, and 5 of the pills we had gotten to prevent altitude sickness in the mountains of neighboring Tajikistan. But it was nearly impossible to reach anyone to get further clarification.
Please leave a message for user ID 108. Begin recording at the tone. Sorry, I am unable to do that at this time.
What?
Message has not been recorded. If you know the extension of the person...
Calls were rarely answered, emails went unresponded, and the same thing happened with other embassies as well. On the rare occasions when I'd actually get through to a live human being, they'd promise to get back to me, but never would, making what should have been a simple process incredibly drawn out and frustrating. Buying car insurance turned out to be its own challenge, since there was only one British company that would insure us American drivers. Thankfully, signing up for a policy was a straightforward process.
Regarding the vehicle itself, as far as you're aware, has it previously ever been declared a write-off or a total loss at all?
I certainly hope not if we're driving it to Mongolia. No,
that's all right. Do you know what the current value of the vehicle is?
I could tell you what we paid for it, though it's probably worth less than what we paid for it. But I think it was £550, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Then there were the more difficult tasks that boggled my mind with their complexity. Take those Iranian visas, for instance. As a result of a new anti-terrorism provision the U.S. instituted a few months back, having an Iranian stamp in our American passports could mean we would need to get visas in the future to visit dozens of European countries where we can currently travel visa-free. So my brother and I had to write letters to the State Department to get duplicate passports. Or another example, getting a carnet to drive through Iran. So just to explain for those of you unfamiliar with this, a carnet in this instance is basically like a passport for our vehicle. My brother and I had to pay a huge deposit up front to prove to Iranian authorities that we weren't going to sell or abandon our car in their country. And then when we left, we'd get our deposit back. There are only a few places that sell carnets, however, so I called up a German auto club that had been recommended by our friends Rosie and Jane, who were also going with us on this trip.
Herzlich willkommen beim ADAC. Momentan befinden sich alle Berater im Kundengespräch. Wir bitten Sie, zu einem späteren Zeitpunkt erneut anzurufen.
Okay, I don't speak any German. I have no idea what they're saying.
ADAC Reisebüro, mein Name ist Gisa Jochheim.
Guten Tag. Sprechen Sie English?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. Is there someone there who can answer some questions about getting a carnet?
A carnet? What is a carnet? I think we don't have that. Just a second, I asked.
It took some time on hold, several more calls, and a few emails to reach the right person in the right department, but finally we got the green light. Then an hour or so to fill out a 17-page form I downloaded from the internet, and another hurdle to figure out how to transfer 5,000 euros to pay the deposit. Since they didn't take credit cards, I had already arrived abroad, and my bank back home refused to let me do a wire transfer without physically going to a local branch. Every day I seemed to get sucked down another rabbit hole of bureaucracy.
What country or state will you be traveling to?
United Kingdom.
Will you be going anywhere else?
Yes.
Where will you be going next?
France.
Will you be going anywhere else?
Yes.
Even what I thought would be simple things like notifying my credit card company of my travel plans turned out to be tricky.
Okay, I can only add one more destination for this trip. Where will you be going next?
Operator.
Let me get someone to help you. Please hold.
My name is Alden, and how can I help you?
Hi, I'm going on a big trip, and I tried to go through the system, but it only lets me add, I think, 4 countries. I'm going to 19 different countries, so I guess I need to speak to you.
Wow.
It took a while, but Alden from the Mumbai call center helped me get things squared away. And he even tapped into his wealth of knowledge as a seasoned traveler to tell me about some highlights of the places I planned to visit, like Uzbekistan.
You will see a lot of street fights out there.
A lot of street fights? Really?
Yeah, of course. They're all about drinks and brawls.
Kyrgyzstan.
This is the part of the year I believe you should receive some monsoon weather.
Oh, monsoon, you think so, yeah.
And Kazakhstan.
If you ever go to Kazakhstan, you will find some small restaurants that basically serve horse milk.
Horse milk?
Yes, horse milk and yak milk, so you definitely want to give a shot.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to try it while I'm there, yeah. I don't know if it's any good, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's good.
Now that I knew what to look forward to, I flew to the UK to take care of some final arrangements before setting out on our journey. Rosie had also flown in from Australia, and all of us were headed to her friend Jane's house in Nottingham, which would be our home base for the next few weeks prior to our departure. But first, I had to pick up the car our fellow ralliers Adam and James had purchased on our behalf. So I took the train to northern England, where James picked me up at the station, and we drove over for me to see the vehicle for the first time.
Oh, that's our car. Oh, look at that. Wow, it's tiny. So this is what we're going to be in for the next several months. This is going to be tough getting all our gear in here. Oh, man.
Now, to be honest, I was a bit nervous, since this was my first time both driving stick on my own and driving with the steering wheel on the right and on the opposite side of the road. Thankfully, there was an empty parking lot out back for me to practice. I have to say, it was pretty frustrating at first, with plenty of moments like this.
Stalled again. Oh my gosh. It was a disaster.
But finally, I was able to make some progress.
So I've been practicing for, I don't know how long, an hour and a half. Still not very pretty, but, it's a lot better than it was. Hopefully, the more I do it, the better I'll become. And I told everyone I was learning to drive stick, and they said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get it. Once you get it, it'll be like riding a bicycle." So I hope that's the case. It's just this initial learning curve that's kind of annoying, but I guess I've kind of got the hang of it to start going. I mean, I can't stay around here all day, so I'll just take it slow and see what I could do. So here goes nothing. And it's starting to rain on top of all that. What more challenges could I add to this?
An hour or so later, I got to Jane's house, still miraculously in one piece.
Yeah, I'm still figuring out how to drive this.
Don't worry, because I'm the same with mine. I've not driven mine far at all.
But you know how to drive stick, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. And you know how to drive on the left side with the steering wheel on the right.
I said he's got to pick the car up. I said he's got to drive on the wrong side of the road with a stick shift.
I actually was okay with the wrong side of the road. And once you get going on the highway, you're fine. It's just, you have so many damn roundabouts. And every time there's a traffic light, one after another, and I have to keep coming to a full stop, and then I got to switch gears, and then I would stall out every time, and I'm like waving, apologizing to the people behind me. Well, I made it.
I'll admit that when I first laid eyes on our car, I was a bit disappointed. It was in need of a really good car wash, and despite everything I had heard about how small it was even tinier than I had expected. When I picked up my brother a few days later and took him for his first test drive, he felt much the same way.
This is ridiculous.
You like this?
We've been driving for 10 seconds, and this is like the stupidest little car I've ever been in. Just go. Oh, God.
But after he rode it around the block a few times, it quickly grew on him.
It's a cool little car. I'm excited to drive this to Mongolia. I mean, it's a lot cooler than some fancy SUV. This car will inevitably make it much more of an adventure than a more capable car would. I feel like if I didn't live in Brooklyn, I kind of now all of a sudden want to go buy a $500 car just to trash. It's a total piece of shit, but it's kind of great. Like, you don't have to care about it that much. We have to care about this because it's driving us across the world. And we're going to take very good care of her. But it's kind of cool. It's just this, like, tiny little machine. I kind of love it, though. I really do.
If you remember from previous episodes, the Mongol Rally rules state that all vehicles have to have engines of 1.2 liters or less. And we decided on this particular car, the Nissan Micra, because it supposedly has a 100% success rate from all the previous rallies over the past dozen years.
You're driving the rocket ship with not a lot of car.
That's Dave Donald, the coordinator of the Institute of Motor Industries at West Nottingham College, which is basically a giant garage that teaches students all there is to know about car mechanics. Since we'd be driving 11,000 miles and none of us knew much of anything about fixing cars, it seemed like it might be a good idea to get some basic maintenance and repair advice. So my brother and I, along with Jane and Rosie, met up with Dave to get an overview.
So, first and foremost, you're going to ask this car to do a lot.
Correct.
Every morning before you leave, what you'll do is you'll do oil levels, make sure everything's okay, oil, water, and all your fluids.
Yeah.
Okay? Look to see if something looks untoward. And then just very quickly, start from the right, battery's fine, fuse box cover's on, check your water level. Most important.
Dave went over all the basics, like how to keep the car from overheating, how to change the battery, and how to troubleshoot potential issues with the alternator. He also passed along a number of tips, like recommending that we take a spare battery for the trip.
The nice thing about the battery is it's a reserve power supply. I know you're going in convoy. In your mind, you only need a set of jump leads because there's going to be two cars.
Yeah.
Now, if I followed you to Nottingham, what's the chances of us both arriving at Nottingham at exactly the same time? And obviously all the roads are well signposters out Mongolia way, so you know exactly what road you're on and which way you're going to turn, and these guys are going to find you.
And we won't be arguing about
Dave,
it at all.
now there's your first mistake. You said that word road.
Exactly.
You need to change that to kind of maybe a bit
Modern
of a...
idea of travel
horse.
is my GPS works great. Oh dear, it's broke. Where are you? I've no idea. So with that in mind, if you get yourself a set of jump leads and you carry a spare battery, you are self-sufficient. I.e. you can jump start this car. More importantly, you can jump start each other's cars.
But the more I learned, the more confused I got, since, like I said, I knew very little about cars going into this, and now I was hearing wildly different information from different people, all of them far more knowledgeable than myself, and I didn't know who to believe. Take, for example, this advice we received from my brother's friend Adam, who's a big car enthusiast.
Because of the kind of mileage you're going to be doing, I would recommend that you take at least 4 service kits for the vehicle. Now, for the cost of spending £240 on oil and oil filters and air filter, that will do your engine the world of good. If that thing has fresh oil in it every 2.5 to 3,000 miles, that will really help you guys out.
But when I asked Dave what he thought...
As far as changing the oil thoroughly, like how many miles would you say we should do?
Don't worry about it.
Really?
You're only doing 10,000 miles.
Okay,
It's not like
I
every
guess
3,000 or anything?
some cars they say 3,000 or 5,000 now.
Really?
Yeah, back
In the
home
US.
anyway, in
Really?
the US, yeah.
Robbing swines. Effectively speaking, engine oil should be able to live out the engine. The problem is it's the engine that's the weak part because the engine wears. So all that black rubbish in your oil is the engine effectively wearing away.
Okay.
If it didn't do that, the oil would be in there forever.
So, but if we're driving it there...
12,000 miles or every year, whichever comes first.
Really?
They just
See,
want you to
back
go
home
in
they
and,
have like every 3 months or 5.
They put a sticker
Wow.
on your windshield back home. They don't do that
That's
here?
nice of them.
Adam also gave us this advice on gear we should bring.
If a wheel bearing goes, you can drive with a bad wheel bearing. That's not a problem. You can potentially drive with a failed shock absorber. You can't really drive with a cracked spring. So in terms of the essentials, I would say 2 springs, 1 front, 1 back, 2 dampers, 1 front, 1 back, and then a spare for everything that there is on the car that might go. So, alternator, I think a sump guard, so a big sheet of steel welded onto the bottom. Absolutely, that makes sense.
But again, Dave took a different approach.
So are there any backups of anything that you would suggest, that things that we might not be able to find along the way, or things if they break we totally wouldn't be able to drive anymore? I mean, people have recommended all kinds of, they've said a lot of things about the suspension of shocks and dampers, and because they said that's the most likely to go. Maybe
The thing is, the best defence is not to break it. If it's a bad road, the worst thing that can happen is you don't concentrate on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You start to chit-chat because you're bored. Oh, look at that eagle, look at that mountain, look at that river. The next thing, you hit a pothole and snap this suspension leg off.
Right.
That's it, game over.
But that's what my concern is. If it's something like that, if we potentially just hit a pothole, things could sneak up on you sometimes. And is that the one thing that can bring an extra shock or something that,
You've also got several components. You've got the wheel bearing, the brakes, the caliper, the wishbone, the drive shaft.
You would need to bring them all. Yeah.
So just don't break it.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like it's pretty obvious.
Well, the easiest way not to break it is not to drive to Mongolia.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I have driven cars that are not designed to do what I've made them do. Just drive slow.
Okay.
Accelerate when it's nice and don't when it's not nice. Simple as that.
I still thought that sounded much easier said than done. And if I could cut to the present for a moment here, I just want to say I'm recording this episode as I'm now halfway through my trip, having experienced the sheer terror of driving through Iran after dark, when you're heading down a perfectly smooth, flat road where it seems totally safe to go 40 miles per hour, when suddenly and without warning a pavement-colored speed bump appears out of nowhere, and you go flying over it like a scene out of Dukes of Hazzard. And I feel totally vindicated in my skepticism. But anyway, back to the story. I figured at the time that I'd give Dave the benefit of the doubt and let him win that round. So no need for spare suspension parts if we just drive more carefully. But what about spares for other parts of the car?
I'm not expecting most of these things we would change ourselves, but I'm saying just to have the part with us if we go to a garage, if it's something that they didn't have there, I don't know.
If you're at a garage,
yeah,
the chances are they can get one.
Okay.
I.e., you're in Europe.
We're not worried about
And there
Europe
isn't
at
a
all.
garage.
Yeah.
And it'll be a guy with
Exactly.
a shack in Tajikistan.
The problem is, would this guy even know where a crank sensor was or what it does?
Well, but they have vehicles there. I mean, I'm sure they...
Yeah, so therefore,
Yeah.
they'll probably have a crank sensor.
But which things are specific to this vehicle? I'm saying that they're not going to be able to have.
The problem is,
yeah,
yes, I could give you a shopping list and you
Yeah.
could spend £300, £400, £500 and fill your boot with spares.
Right.
But I haven't got a crystal ball. I couldn't tell you which one's going to break.
After Dave had finished imparting his knowledge, I pulled my brother Drew aside to ask for his take on all this. Now, I should explain that I'm the kind of traveler who likes to be prepared for whatever scenario might arise. I'm a planner at heart, but Drew likes to do things more on the fly, and he seemed swayed by Dave's arguments. I explained to him that after hearing totally different advice from not just Adam, but several other friends as well, I was feeling a bit uneasy.
I'm just listening to what everyone said,
But a lot of it is literally winging it. And we have to feel okay with that.
But I feel all the car stuff, people said, bring this,
And we're getting certain things. We're putting on new tires. We're bringing extra fuses. We're doing basic things. We can't bring extra
No, I know.
shocked to say.
I just feel like we're ignoring 90% of the things people
I don't
told
agree.
us.
So if there's certain things bringing extra fluids or whatever, we could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, bring an extra clutch. Maybe we still do that.
Yeah.
But as far as extra struts or something, if it's a whole big assembly, then no.
Yeah.
But we'll be good.
Okay.
We'll be
Okay.
good. And if we're not, we'll figure it out and then mix for more of an adventure. I mean,
Yeah.
not to be underprepared, but we can realistically only do so much.
With our newfound car repair knowledge and a shopping list of some basic essentials to bring for our journey, we set out on a field trip to the local auto and camping supply store, where we soon realized we were in a bit over our heads. Thankfully, one of the sales associates noticed how confused we looked and offered to help.
You folks all right?
Well, in a manner of speaking. That's Radweld, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Would you recommend also getting the engine stop leak stuff?
Engine stop leak will work if you've got a cork gasket or a rubber seal that's leaking.
Do we know
it
that?
swells them up.
Yeah.
That's how they work. So it
Okay.
won't work on a head gasket, but it will work on oil seals, it will work on rocker box gasket, things like that. So
We have no idea what any of that is.
You're going on the continent?
Yes,
Yes.
but going to
We're going
Mongolia.
straight
To Mongolia.
Mongolia.
And Turkmenistan. Iran.
Yeah.
We really are.
I'd take some stop, Yeah, I'm sure you are. And I'd take some stop leak then if it was me.
Some engine stop
It
leaks.
wouldn't hurt. It
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt, just in case.
But where do we
might
put
get
it
you-
again? In the
If
engine.
you put it in the engine. All right? So if you do get a leak, you put it in your engine. And it might help you a little bit.
Okay.
God, we need something to help us.
Shelf by shelf, aisle by aisle, we filled our shopping baskets with all sorts of supplies, from the serious.
Starting kits, batteries, ones that have a built-in compressor.
You want a better jack to jack up the car, right?
Oh, we need windshield wipers.
Tow ropes.
Well, just some rags would be good. Some basic rags.
To the more ridiculous.
Oh, this is helpful. A little sticker so you remember which side of the road to drive on.
Bird dropping wipes.
Bird dropping wipes for our car. That's an essential.
Hey guys.
What is that?
Very important, essential.
A twister picnic blanket.
We should get that. We
To
should
play with
get
like
that.
children in Mongolia.
It comes with a spin wheel.
If you're playing that with children in Mongolia, I don't want you to be on the news as some kind of paedophile.
If I had any illusions about buying spare parts for everything that could possibly break on our car, our shopping experience quickly gave me a dose of reality. After several hours, we rang up our purchases and saw that we'd collectively spent over $1,000. And even if money were not an issue, I realized that there's only so much we could fit in our two subcompact cars. In the end, we upgraded our tires and bought spare belts and an extra clutch, but decided to pass on most of the other parts some of our friends had recommended we bring. We'd keep our fingers crossed that they simply wouldn't break, or if they did, that we'd hopefully be able to find them along our way. When my brother and I first told our family and friends about our trip, we were surprised at their reaction. Given that we would be traveling through an unfamiliar and sometimes volatile part of the world, we'd assumed they would be concerned for our safety. But instead, they were mostly excited to hear about the incredible adventure we were planning. As our departure date approached, however, the reality of the whole thing began to set in, and with it came a stream of worried calls and emails. As Americans, might we be somehow targeted, they asked, and couldn't we go a different way? This was in the wake of high-profile terrorist attacks in Baghdad, Bangladesh, and during the Bastille Day celebrations in France. Suddenly, the world seemed like an even more dangerous place than it already was, and the folks back home couldn't help but feel anxious for us. Their concerns mostly centered on two particular countries we'd be driving through, Turkey and Iran. Now, we had researched Iran pretty thoroughly before embarking on our trip, and everything we read had indicated that it was actually a very safe, tourist-friendly place, so Iran didn't really worry us. Turkey was a different story. In the months leading up to our departure, there were several large bombings in both Istanbul and Ankara, and travel anywhere near the Syrian border remained out of the question. The country faced dual threats from ISIS extremists and Kurdish separatists who vowed to cripple the economy by specifically targeting popular tourist sites. So it was hard not to give our plans a second look. For a while, it seemed like things might be settling down, but then just weeks before we were getting ready to leave...
Information I was given, a terrorist at the international terminal entrance first opened fire with a Kalashnikov and then blew himself up. We had
An ISIS attack at Istanbul's Ataturk airport killed some 40 people and wounded more than 200. We sat glued to the television, watching the latest updates and wondering how this would affect our itinerary. Many other travelers, it seemed, were canceling their trips.
Certainly the IS attacks have been on tourist targets, and the tourists have run scared, haven't they? The tourist economy in Turkey has crashed. Certainly they've heeded some of these warnings, and scenes like this will not help.
My brother and I emailed several friends of friends who lived in Turkey to ask for their advice, and they assured us that despite the recent bombings, most of their country remained a fairly safe place, and we were unlikely to run into any problems if we just took some common sense precautions. Still, we thought perhaps we should make some concessions to calm the nerves of our worried loved ones. We considered the alternatives. We could alter our route completely and instead drive north through Russia, but that would create visa complications for Rosie and Jane. Plus, that would mean we'd pass through some other dangerous areas like eastern Ukraine and even Chechnya. Or we could try to find a ferry across the Black Sea, but it didn't look like there were very many options. Jane and Rosie weren't particularly worried, but they left the decision up to us.
I mean, I don't think we can avoid Turkey altogether.
We can, due to the route, but I know...
Is it mainly Istanbul you're concerned about?
Being that the current events are what they are, I'm totally fine skipping Istanbul, because I'd rather not take any unnecessary risk.
I mean, I've never been to Istanbul, and I was really looking forward to it, but I understood maybe this isn't the best time.
We had originally planned to spend a full day and 2 nights sightseeing in Istanbul, but now we decided we'd just spend a single night on the outskirts of the city and then leave early the following morning, avoiding all of the popular tourist areas. Then, just 2 days before our departure, there was another development.
Turkey's president described the developing situation as a coup attempt by a minority faction within the military. Well, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has vowed those people will be met with what he calls a necessary response. He has insisted his government is still in control of the country.
The Turkish military had shut down the 2 bridges linking Istanbul from west to east, and we were worried the country might temporarily close its borders. News was developing quickly, and we had no idea what would happen. My brother checked his phone for updates.
An emergency message. U.S. Embassy Ankara informs U.S. citizens that martial law and a curfew have been imposed in Turkey. All flights at the Istanbul airport have been suspended. We encourage U.S. citizens to shelter in place and do not go to the U.S. Embassy or consulate at this time.
It was frustrating that the situation would heat up again just as we were preparing to go there, but I figured at least we had a bit of advance notice.
This would suck if we were there right now and we were in the middle of things and it would just...
be exciting.
But just the unknowns, you know. If it's a place you're familiar with, that's one thing, and then you could kind of make judgment calls better and everything.
Yeah.
If it's totally foreign to you, especially if you have a vehicle and everything, like it's... I don't know, I would be a little terrified, I think.
Is it said to be violent? I don't think it is. I think it's a peaceful coup. I've never been to a coup before.
Right, this just came in. I have AP alerts on my phone. It says... Soldiers fire on people trying to cross Istanbul's Bosphorus Bridge in protest of the coup. Some have been hurt.
Well,
so
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
As soon as shots start getting fired, I'll give you that one.
Even after it became clear that the coup attempt had failed, we still had a lot of questions. Like, how safe was it really? And if the embassy had issued a travel advisory, might we invalidate our travel insurance if we still went? What's more, we had to make a decision soon, since the quick drive we planned to make across Europe meant our scheduled arrival at the Turkish border was just 6 days away. Coming up next time, we meet with other rally teams to get their take on the evolving situation.
We are not very worried about having difficulties in Turkey. As long as there's some sort of order, we can go through it. I mean, look at us, we're driving a purple Suzuki with a pink flamingo on top. So we are not a threat to anyone.
And after nearly a year of planning, we finally hit the road.
Turn right, go down to the A27 and follow it all the way along the south coast to Calais.
And that'll take us to Mongolia?
Yeah.
Visit my website at farfromhomepodcast.org to drop me a line, sign up for my MailChimp newsletter, or follow my adventures on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks as always to the Public Radio Exchange for podcast hosting and technical support. Check them out at prx.org to find lots more audio to keep your ears educated, entertained, and happy. And if you like what you hear, please remember to visit the iTunes store and give a rating or write a quick review of this podcast to help others find it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.